Alex never expected a single sentence to divide his life into two parts, before the parking lot and after it. He was 14 when he heard his father laughing with another man behind an old pickup truck during his older brother's baseball tournament. The man complained that his own son was lazy and had no competitive spirit. Alex's father laughed loudly and said, "Maybe we should trade kids." Then he added with another laugh, "Not my older boy, Vincent. I mean the younger one. Alex is so quiet you'd never even notice the swap." The two men laughed together like it was the funniest joke in the world. Alex stood on the other side of the truck, frozen, phone in his hand, listening to every word. Alex did not walk out and confront his father. He did not cry, shout, or slam the truck door. Instead, he quietly climbed into the back seat and stared at the dashboard while the laughter faded in his ears. A few minutes later, his father returned with Vincent, still talking excitedly about the baseball game. "Did you see that curveball in the 6th inning?" his father said proudly. Vincent grinned and kept explaining every pitch he had thrown. Their father laughed again and patted Vincent on the shoulder. When he finally glanced back at Alex, he asked casually, "You okay back there?" Alex nodded once and said softly, "Yeah, I'm fine." That moment became the last honest conversation between them for years. Before that day, Alex had always known his father preferred Vincent, but hearing it out loud changed everything. Vincent was loud, confident, and athletic. He had been playing baseball since he was 5, and by 16 he was already the best pitcher on his high school team. Their father never missed a single game. Rain, long drives, school nights, or early morning tournaments never stopped him. Alex played soccer instead. It was quieter, less dramatic, and apparently less important in their father's eyes. When Alex was 14, he counted something that stayed in his memory. That season, his father attended only one of his soccer games. And even then, he watched from the car in the parking lot. After the parking lot moment, Alex made a decision that no one else noticed at first. He stopped trying. He stopped asking his father to come to his games. He stopped waiting after dinner hoping his father would talk to him. When Vincent and their father discussed baseball, Alex simply listened quietly and left the room when the conversation ended. His mother sometimes asked, "Alex, why are you so quiet lately?" Alex would shrug and answer politely, "Just tired from school." Nothing dramatic changed. That was the strange part. From the outside it simply looked like a boy growing older and becoming more private. But inside Alex's mind, something important had quietly closed. Months passed before Alex's father noticed anything different. One evening he knocked on Alex's bedroom door and said, "Hey, want to shoot some hoops outside?" Alex answered calmly without looking up from his homework. "Maybe another time." A few nights later his father tried again. "I'm grabbing burgers. Want to ride with me?" Alex replied politely, "I already ate." The invitations continued for weeks and Alex answered every one the same way. Always respectful. Always distant. Vincent eventually asked him, "What's going on with you and Dad?" Alex shrugged and said quietly, "Nothing is going on." But inside his mind he repeated the promise he had written in his notebook that night. "If Dad doesn't want me as a son, I won't act like one." For the first few months, Alex's father did not notice anything had changed. His attention was still focused almost entirely on Vincent's baseball season. There were games every week, practices almost every afternoon, and tournaments that filled entire weekends. Alex moved quietly through the house, finishing homework, attending soccer practice, and spending more time in his room. At dinner, Vincent and their father talked excitedly about pitching statistics and upcoming games. Sometimes their father would ask Alex a short question like, "How was school?" Alex always answered politely with one or two words. "Fine," he would say. Then the conversation would quickly drift back to baseball again, just like it always had before. Around the 4th month, something slowly began to shift. One night Alex heard a gentle knock on his bedroom door. When he opened it, his father was standing there with an uncertain look on his face. "Hey Alex," he said awkwardly, "I was thinking maybe we could watch a game together tonight." Alex kept his voice calm and polite. "I have a lot of homework tonight," he replied. His father nodded and tried to smile. "Okay, maybe another time." Alex closed the door softly and returned to his desk. The strange thing was that his father kept trying. The knocks on the door began to happen more often over the following weeks. Soon Alex noticed something else unusual. His father began appearing at some of his soccer games. At first it was only once in a while. He would stand quietly near the sideline with his hands in his pockets and watch the match. Sometimes he waved if Alex looked over. After one game, his father walked beside him toward the parking lot and said, "You played really well today." Alex answered politely, "Thank you." His father waited a moment as if expecting more, but Alex simply walked toward the car. Their conversation ended there. It felt less like a father and son speaking and more like two neighbors exchanging polite comments. Vincent noticed the change before anyone else in the house fully understood it. One evening he found Alex sitting alone on the back porch and asked quietly, "What's going on between you and Dad?" Alex kept his eyes on the ground. "Nothing," he said calmly. Vincent frowned. "It doesn't feel like nothing," he replied. "You treat him like he's a stranger." Alex finally looked up at his brother and said softly, "I'm just giving him what he wanted." Vincent looked confused. "What do you mean?" Alex shook his head. "Don't worry about it." Vincent watched him for a moment but eventually dropped the subject, unsure what Alex meant. The years passed slowly but steadily. Alex turned 16, then 17. His father continued trying to reach him in small ways. Sometimes he slipped notes under Alex's bedroom door that said things like, "Want to grab lunch this weekend? Or maybe we can watch the game together tonight." Alex answered every note the same way. "Maybe next time." Always polite, always calm, never angry. But there was never a next time. The distance between them stayed exactly the same. From the outside it simply looked like a teenager growing more independent. But inside the house, everyone could feel that something important between father and son had quietly disappeared. By the time Alex reached his senior year of high school, the distance between him and his father had become a normal part of life in the house. No one talked about it openly, but everyone could feel it. At dinner the conversations were still friendly, but there was always a strange quietness when Alex and his father faced each other across the table. His mother sometimes looked between them with concern, as if she was trying to solve a puzzle that never gave her enough clues. Alex remained polite and respectful, answering questions when asked. But he never volunteered anything about his life anymore. What made the situation more confusing for everyone was that Alex's father never stopped trying. He continued attending Alex's soccer games during his senior year. He never made a big announcement about it and never asked Alex to thank him for showing up. He simply stood on the sideline and watched. Sometimes Alex noticed him standing there in the crowd, hands folded, eyes focused on the field. Years earlier Alex would have felt proud seeing him there. Now the feeling was different. There was no anger left anymore. That had burned away after the second year. What remained was a quiet emptiness. Alex's mother eventually tried asking him directly what had happened. One afternoon she found him in the kitchen after school and said gently, "Alex, something changed a few years ago. I've been waiting for you to talk about it." Alex kept pouring himself a glass of water. "Nothing changed," he said calmly. She studied his face carefully. "You used to talk to your father all the time," she replied. "Now you barely look at him." Alex gave a small shrug. "People grow up," he answered. His mother watched him for a long moment but finally nodded and let the conversation drop. Near the end of the school year, Alex received a letter that changed the future waiting for him. He had been accepted to a university nearly 1,000 miles away. When he told the family at dinner, his mother hugged him tightly while Vincent congratulated him with a proud grin. His father sat quietly for a moment before standing up and reaching across the table. "I'm proud of you, son," he said sincerely. Alex looked at the outstretched hand, shook it politely and replied, "Thank you." His father seemed to expect something more, but Alex simply returned to his seat. The house slowly filled with the feeling that something important was about to end. Alex's room was half-packed with boxes of books and clothes waiting for the move. The walls that once held family photos were now bare, leaving pale rectangles where the frames had once hung. Alex noticed the empty spaces while folding clothes into a suitcase. He had taken the pictures down slowly over the years without really thinking about it. Looking at the blank wall now, he realized how much of his past had quietly faded away. One evening Vincent came into Alex's room and sat down on the bed with a serious look on his face. "Dad isn't doing well," he said quietly. Alex kept folding a shirt into his suitcase. "What do you mean?" he asked. Vincent sighed. "He barely sleeps anymore. Mom says he's been crying at night." Alex paused for a moment before continuing to pack. "I'm sorry to hear that," he replied calmly. Vincent shook his head slowly. "You're not really sorry," he said. Alex did not argue. He simply closed the suitcase and changed the subject. 2 nights before Alex's going-away party, he walked downstairs late at night to get a glass of water. The house was quiet and most of the lights were off. When he entered the kitchen, he found his father sitting alone at the table. His father looked up and seemed surprised to see him there. For a moment neither of them spoke. Finally his father said quietly, "Alex, could you sit for a minute?" Alex stayed standing by the counter. "I'm just grabbing water," he replied. His father nodded slowly but continued watching him. After a moment of silence, his father spoke again. "I know things have been difficult between us," he said carefully. Alex took a sip of water and replied, "I don't know what you mean." His father rubbed his hands together nervously. "You've been distant for years," he continued. "It feels like you look at me like I'm nothing." Alex set the glass down on the counter. "I don't look at you like you're nothing," he answered calmly. "I look at you like what you are. A man who lives in the same house as me." The words seemed to hit his father harder than Alex expected. His father's face tightened with pain and confusion. "What did I do?" he asked quietly. "I've been trying to figure it out for years." Alex stood there silently for a moment before turning toward the stairs. "Good night," he said. His father watched him leave with a helpless expression. Upstairs, Alex closed his bedroom door and leaned against it for a long moment. In just a few days he would be leaving for college and the distance between them would finally become permanent. Meanwhile, Alex's mother was preparing a large going-away party for the weekend. She invited grandparents, aunts, uncles and cousins from across the state. The house quickly filled with decorations, food trays, and the noise of relatives arriving to celebrate Alex's next chapter. Alex didn't argue about the party, even though he would have preferred a quiet goodbye. When he walked downstairs that evening wearing the blue shirt his mother had chosen, relatives immediately surrounded him with congratulations. Across the room his father stood talking with family members. When their eyes met, Alex saw something in his father's expression he had not seen before. Hope mixed with fear. The house became loud the way it always did when extended family gathered together. Conversations overlapped, laughter echoed from the kitchen, and cousins moved from room to room carrying plates of food. Alex greeted relatives politely as they congratulated him on getting into college. "You must be proud of your son," one uncle told Alex's father. His father nodded quickly and said, "Very proud of both my boys." When Alex walked into the living room, his father placed a hand on his shoulder for a brief moment. Alex did not pull away, but he did not react either. He simply continued greeting relatives as if nothing unusual had happened. Later in the evening, Alex's father stood up to give a toast. It was something he had always done at family gatherings. Usually he spoke confidently, filling the room with jokes and stories. This time his voice sounded different from the beginning. "I just want to say how grateful I am for my family," he started slowly. The room grew quiet as people turned toward him. He spoke about how quickly children grow up and how proud he was of both of his sons. When he looked directly at Alex, his voice shook slightly. "I know I haven't always been the father I should have been," he said softly. "But I want everyone here to know that I love my boys more than anything." The room remained silent as he raised his glass. Alex stood across the room holding a cup in his hand. He gave a polite smile and said calmly, "Thank you, sir. And thank you all for coming tonight." The words seemed respectful on the surface, but the room instantly felt heavier. Several relatives glanced at each other in confusion while Alex's father slowly lowered his glass. The silence lasted only a few seconds before someone changed the subject and conversation started again. But the tension remained in the room. Vincent walked over to Alex and spoke quietly. "Calling him sir like that, you know that wasn't respectful," he said. Alex looked at him calmly. "I thought it was," he replied. Vincent shook his head. "That was humiliation," Alex answered softly. "He started it years ago." Vincent stared at him, clearly confused, but before he could respond their grandmother walked over and began asking Alex about college. The party continued for 2 more hours, but the atmosphere had shifted. Alex's father avoided looking at him for the rest of the evening. His mother continued smiling and speaking with guests, but every few minutes she glanced toward Alex with growing concern. When the last relative finally left and the front door closed, the house suddenly felt quiet again. Alex's mother stood near the door for a moment before turning toward the family. Her expression had changed completely. "Living room," she said firmly. It was not a suggestion. The four of them sat facing each other in the living room. Alex and Vincent sat together on the couch while their parents sat across from them. Alex's father stood near the window, unable to stay seated. His mother looked directly at Alex and asked, "What just happened tonight?" Alex answered calmly, "I thanked him." She shook her head slowly. "You called your father, sir, like he was a stranger." Alex remained quiet for a moment before replying, "That's how I speak to people I don't know very well." Alex's father turned around quickly. His eyes were already red. "Leave it," he said quietly to Alex's mother. But she refused. "No," she replied firmly. "I've watched something wrong happening in this house for 4 years and I'm done pretending it's normal." She looked back at Alex. "What happened between you and your father?" Alex crossed his arms and answered calmly, "Nothing happened. That's the problem. Nothing ever happened." Alex's father shook his head. "That's not true," he said. "I've always loved both of my sons." Alex looked directly at him. "How many of my soccer games did you attend when I was 14? He asked quietly. His father hesitated. "I came to plenty," he said uncertainly. Alex shook his head slowly. "You came to 0, he replied. "But you didn't miss a single one of Vincent's baseball games that entire year." The room fell silent again. Alex's mother spoke carefully. "Is this really about soccer games?" she asked. Alex sighed softly. "It's not just about games," he said. "But the games explain a lot." Vincent suddenly spoke up. "Something happened at my regional tournament that summer," he said slowly. Alex's father's face changed instantly, like a memory had suddenly returned. Alex watched him carefully. "Of course you don't remember," Alex said quietly. "It was just a joke between 2 dads in a parking lot." Alex stood up before anyone could respond and walked upstairs to his room. 20 minutes later the shouting began downstairs. He could hear his mother demanding to know how his father could say something like that about his own son. His father's voice sounded defensive at first, saying it had only been a stupid joke. Then her voice rose again, telling him that jokes can destroy people when they come from the wrong person. Alex sat on his bed listening to the argument through the floor, staring at the wall and remembering the words he had heard 4 years earlier behind that truck. Alex barely slept that night. The argument downstairs had eventually faded into silence, but the tension remained in the house like heavy air before a storm. Early the next morning there was a gentle knock on his bedroom door. When Alex opened it, his mother was standing there holding a thin black notebook. He recognized it immediately. It was the composition notebook he had used when he was 14. She stepped inside quietly and placed it on his bed. "I found this while packing some boxes," she said softly. Her voice was already shaking. Alex opened the notebook and saw the page immediately. The corner was folded exactly the way he had left it years earlier. On the page was his 14-year-old handwriting pressed hard into the paper. Every word his father had spoken in the parking lot was written there, line by line, exactly as he had heard it. At the bottom of the page there was one final sentence written darker than the rest. "If he doesn't want me as a son, I won't act like one." When Alex looked up, tears were already running down his mother's face. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked quietly. Alex closed the notebook and shrugged gently. "Because I knew what you would say," he answered. "You would tell me he didn't mean it. You would say I should forgive him." His mother wiped her eyes slowly. "You're right," she admitted. "I probably would have said those things." She took a deep breath before continuing. "And I would have been wrong." The two of them sat quietly in the room for a moment, both understanding that the past could not be changed. Later that afternoon Alex heard another knock at his bedroom door. This time it was his father. "Alex, can we talk?" he asked from the hallway. Alex stayed silent for a moment but eventually opened the door slightly. His father looked exhausted, like he had aged several years overnight. "What I said back then was the worst thing I've ever done," he said quietly. "I used you as a joke to impress someone else." Alex listened without speaking. His father continued, "I can't take it back, but I want you to know I'm sorry." Alex did not invite him inside the room. Instead he sat on the floor with his back against the wall while his father spoke from the hallway. His father admitted that he had always suspected the regional tournament was the moment something changed. He just never wanted to believe that his own words had caused it. I was afraid to ask, he confessed quietly. Because if I asked and you confirmed it, then I'd have to live with what I did. Alex remained silent, listening to every word. 2 days before Alex was scheduled to leave for college, his mother asked him one last time to speak with his father face to face. Just 5 minutes, she said. You don't have to forgive him. Just listen. After thinking about it for a long time, Alex finally agreed. That evening his father entered the room slowly and sat across from him. He looked smaller than Alex remembered. I don't know how to fix what I broke, his father said honestly. But I'm ready to admit I was wrong. Alex asked one question that had stayed with him for 4 years. Why did you laugh? His father lowered his head. For several seconds he searched for an answer that might make sense of it. Finally he said quietly, because I was trying to look confident in front of another father. Vincent's success was easy to brag about. You were quieter, harder for me to understand. Instead of learning who you were, I turned you into a joke. He paused before adding, the laugh is the part one regret most. His father then asked softly, can I hug you? Alex didn't answer right away. After a long pause his father slowly stood up and stepped forward. When his arms wrapped around Alex, something inside Alex finally loosened. The anger that had lived in him for years quietly released its grip. Alex began crying, not because everything was suddenly fixed, but because the 14-year-old boy behind the truck had finally been heard. When they separated, Alex said quietly, this doesn't mean everything is okay. I know, his father replied immediately. I'm not expecting that. That night the family sat together at the dinner table for the first time in years without pretending everything was normal. Vincent finally asked, so, are we okay now? Alex looked at his father for a moment before answering. Not okay, he said honestly. Then he added, but better. His father nodded slowly. That's a start, he replied. For the first time in 4 years, the silence at the table no longer felt empty. 2 days later Alex stood at the airport with his suitcase beside him. His mother hugged him tightly while Vincent joked to keep the mood light. His father hugged him last, quietly and briefly. I'm going to do better, he whispered. Alex shook his head gently. Don't promise anything, he said. Just do it. As Alex walked toward the terminal entrance he stopped and turned back for a moment. Goodbye, Dad, he said. It was the first time he had used that word in 4 years. His father froze before answering softly, Goodbye, son. The story between them was not finished, but for the first time, it had finally begun again.